It all started in my backyard on Harding Avenue in Venice, California. From there I hit the blacktop of my elementary school, then along to the gyms, fields, and courts throughout the west side of Los Angeles. Soon I wasn't just playing, I was coaching and directing, and before I knew it, I was promoting and announcing around the country. I was getting to hang out with these great athletes, witness some legendary games, and really enjoy some iconic venues. From my earliest memories of Coach John Wooden leading UCLA to NCAA basketball titles, it inspired my family, friends, and me to organize the world's largest backyard volleyball tournament in my own backyard. Eventually, I was appointed a position on the AAU Sullivan Award Committee that recognizes the nation's top amateur athlete. Well, it's been quite a trip around the sports block. I'm Denny Lennon, and this is Sports Stories. Welcome to episode 3 of Sports Stories. I want to thank all those viewers and listeners that have given us a good rating. It's helped the show and it's much appreciated. On the last episode with Super Bowl champ Peter Boulware, while I was rolling through the name drop roll call, I failed to include Heather Locklear, who I'd referenced from her critically acclaimed role, well, at least acclaimed by me, as Officer Stacy Sheridan on the critically acclaimed, the TV series T.J. Hooker. Listener-watcher Julie Bandy of Peosta, Iowa, emailed us to call attention to this gross injustice of leaving Officer Sheridan, Heather Locklear, off the roll call. Thanks for the heads up, Julie. You did good, kid. If you have not seen the clip of Officer Sheridan taking down a fleeing suspect with her baton toss, you owe yourself a look. It's a piece of TV gold. Go to our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com and look it up under the Photos and Archives section, Peter Boulware. In 1976, I was a 12-year-old at Venice Marina Little League, a field cut out of the Bologna wetlands on the west side of Los Angeles. I played center field like my hero on the Dodgers at that time, Dusty Baker, the guy that invented the high five. You should look that up. After a stellar regular season, I was chosen to the All-Star team. Yep, you heard me. All-Star, baby. You try making the All-Star team in a 6-team league. Anyhow, it was our country's bicentennial year, so we, of course, were outfitted with red, white, and blue uniforms and windbreakers. America! Anyhow, our little league had never won an All-Star game, but this year would be different, and not just because I'd be roaming the outfield with my self-awarded Golden Glove. The battery of pitcher Gabriel Casillas and catcher Dale Currier were solid. It would not be easy scoring on us. And so it was, on a perfect summer day in LA, with the Venice Marina All-Stars leading 2-1, that we needed just 3 outs to make history and advance to the next rounds. Book the flights for Williamsport, people. We're going all the way. Did I mention that I had driven in a run and stolen a home run away with my Gold Glove? Not too difficult considering the fence was only 3 foot high, but yep, that happened. Okay, here comes a fly ball my way. Yep, 1 out. Duh, Gold Glove. 2 down now with a strikeout. Way to go, Gabe. Then a walk. Okay, tying runs on first. No big. He's going to steal second. I, of course, as one of the self-anointed best 12-year-old outfielders in the country, back up that throw to second. On my way back to my position, I realized that I'm not exactly hustling, and that our pitcher, Gabriel, worked fast. And in my head, thoughts are going through, and then crack! Here comes the ball right at me. Panic rears its ugly head. Why wasn't I hustling back to my spot? Oh no, the ball in between my head and my Golden Glove over the 3-foot fence. Walk-off home run for the other guys. We lose. As I watched that ball roll away beyond the fence, the 2 boys that were working the scoreboard out beyond the fence said, "It's okay, Denny." Really? Number 1, it's not okay. Number 2, 12-year-old boys do not pity one another unless the situation is really, really bad. This was that. I did not look back towards the team. I hopped that 3-foot fence, ran to my dad's car, pushed down the window, got in the car and honked the horn. "Dad, let's go." I wanted out as soon as possible. My dad got to the car, oblivious to the severity of the situation. Denny, don't you want to shake hands with the other team?" Put the key in the ignition and let's go. The legendary teacher and basketball coach from UCLA, John Wooden, spoke about how his father helped him deal with adversity.
For example, my senior year in high school, We lost a championship game by 1 point, the very last, and I think everybody on our team cried, except me. I didn't cry, and I'm sure I felt as badly as the others, but I think that I'd been taught to do the best you can and accept that and accept the consequences. And I believe that came from Dad.
Sports are awesome, and because they're so great, they can hurt so bad. 43 years later, and I'm still hurting. My guest today, the first vice president of the Amateur Athletic Union, Rusty Buchanan. He knew the agony of defeat in 1976. Rusty was one of the top hurdlers in the nation in 1976 and narrowly missed a qualifying time for the Olympic track and field trials in Eugene, Oregon. Adversity was getting spread around pretty thick in 1976. The Bad News Bears was a top movie. Who could forget their adversity? Chris Barnes as Tanner and his tirades, none of which I'll repeat here. Just because it was allowed in the 1970s doesn't mean you can repeat it today. One of the top TV shows of the time was Happy Days. Ron Howard, moving on from Mayberry to Milwaukee to play Richie Cunningham. Who could forget that episode, The Shot in the Dark, where Richie rises to a basketball hero only to miss a game-tying free throw and lose the next game. There was that poignant scene at the end of the game where his father, Howard, offered him a certs. Myself, I side with Flo from the Progressive commercials. Sprinkles are for winners, Richie. And wouldn't you know it, one of the top songs in 1976, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, from Elton John and Kiki D. But I digress. Rusty Buchanan had experienced too much success not to try again for the Olympics. He was one of the top hurdlers in the nation while in high school and was second overall as a freshman in college at North Carolina State, where he attended from 1975 to 1978. While at NC State, Rusty competed against the likes of Charlie Foster from North Carolina Central, the 1974 NCAA champ and the number 2 ranked hurdler in the world. He also competed against Ronaldo Nehemiah from Maryland, the number 1 ranked hurdler in the world for 4 straight years, and Edwin Moses of Morehouse College, who would win the Olympic gold medal at both the Montreal and Los Angeles Olympic Games. Rusty did not run away from the competition. He trained for 2 more years after graduating college and was in peak form to make the 1980 Olympic team. But before the trials, the 39th President of the United States, James Earl Carter Jr., made the following statement. I can't say at this moment what other nations will not go to the Summer Olympic Games in Moscow. Ours will not go. I say that not with any equivocation. The decision has been made. Come on, Jimmy, really? The Olympic window just might have closed on Rusty. He may never get a chance to experience those Olympic Games. Well, neither Tanner nor Richie gave up, and Rusty wasn't going to either. Rusty Buchanan would go on to a career in sports tourism and a career with the Amateur Athletic Union. While serving the AAU, Rusty was instrumental in promoting several programs, leading him to winning a position as a national officer for the AAU. His Olympic dream stayed alive as he served as one of President George H.W. Bush's 1,000 Points of Light when he coordinated a torch run as part of the AAU JO Games. That success led to his position coordinating the Olympic Games torch run in Atlanta. In 2010, Rusty was appointed the position of escort for the USA bobsled team that won the gold medal at the Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver, earning Rusty a coveted Olympic participation medal. In 2012, Rusty, along with a group that included Navy Rear Admiral and International Security Assistance Force Deputy Chief of Staff Hal Pittman, was sent on a diplomatic mission to Afghanistan to work with coaches and sports administrators, empowering communities through sports. What a story! So now, after I dropped Heather Locklear, Dusty Baker, Gabriel Casillas, Dale Courier, John Wooden, Chris Barnes, Ron Howard, Flo, Elton John and Kiki D, Charlie Foster, Ronaldo Nehemiah, Edwin Moses, Jimmy, HW, and Hal Pittman, Sprinkles, from the AAU Leadership Convention at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Orange County. Here's my Sports Stories interview with AAU First Vice President Rusty Buchanan. I think the first convention I attended for AAU was in Hawaii, and at it was where Roger looked out, the president, Roger Gowdy, looked out into the crowd wanting to give Gino an award. And he says, how do you say his last name? And I forget who the president was at that time. And he goes, Grajada. And so ever since then, Gino's been Grajada. But at that same convention, Rusty, everybody's going up to the mic with the full conventions in there, and they're giving their report. So they'll come up and they'll say, we increased by 1,000, we increased by 1,500,
Reports on file.
Then you come up and you go, for the surfing report, winds out of the southwest at about 2 miles per hour, 2 to 3 footers. And the place rolls. It was so dry. And I go, who's that? And Gino goes, oh, that's Rusty. That's Rusty.
And the funny thing is, I'm not really a surfer,
Yeah.
but I was the national surfing chairman, and that sounded apropos for a surf report, right?
Yep. That was funny. I was going, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Who's that guy? So Raleigh, North Carolina, huh?
Well, that's where I went to college. And
Was that where you were born?
No, born in I'm North Carolina, born and bred, though.
Okay.
Born in Fayetteville.
Okay.
All my relatives live up in the mountains of North Carolina. I grew up in Charlotte. That's really what I called home. Went to NC State.
Yeah, sure.
It's the best 9 years of my life, college. I learned not to let books interfere with my education.
Of course not.
So.
Who does? What'd your parents do? Like, how'd North Carolina become where Rusty was born?
Yeah, well, my mom and dad both grew up in the mountains of North Carolina.
Okay.
My dad was in the military. My mom was a PE teacher. Both my parents were athletes. My mother was a basketball player. My dad was a baseball player. And my mom went to Western Carolina. My dad went to Wake Forest. My dad joined the military, and hence the Fayetteville connection.
Did your father play at Wake Forest at all? Any sports?
He did. He was a baseball player.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
pretty excited.
I spoke yesterday at this convention with Teresa Parmenter,
Right.
and she played Iowa State rules basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Growing
yeah.
up, 3-on-3.
3-on-3.
Went back and forth. Did they have
Sure.
any of those kind of rules in North Carolina, because North Carolina is such a hotbed for basketball? Did they restrict what the women, how far they could run the court and all that kind of stuff?
We're backwards, but we're not. No, I'm just teasing you. Yeah, back in the day, when my mom played, it was 3-on-3.
It was the same?
And I think part of the problem back then was just getting the numbers to come out. How many? I think times have changed so much, Denny, as you well know,
Sure.
being involved as you are in sports and seeing the whole women's sports movement grow.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's fantastic. My sister was an athlete. She played softball at NC State.
Okay.
And so we've got a long tradition in our family of being athletic. My sister probably a better athlete than I was. Have you ever tried to hit a fast pitch softball?
It's
That thing
something
coming at you,
else.
it's like 95 miles an hour. It's insane. I don't know how these
Yeah, I
people
coached
do it,
fast pitch softball in high school, and I never wanted to show off my hitting skills to them. I could hit infield.
a swing and a miss, strike two for
Exactly.
Rusty up at the plate here.
So you had one sister, any other siblings?
I do. No, just my one sister. Yeah.
Now, what was your middle school? I like whenever I do interviews, I want the middle school and the high school to get a little shout out, because sometimes that gets lost in time.
Well, Danny, I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of opportunities to do some speaking engagements, and so I always like to tell some stories that I think kids will relate to. And I will tell you this, that I was probably a better baseball player than I was anything else growing up.
All right.
And I can remember that my last year in, I guess it was middle school, we actually had junior high school and high schools in North Carolina. So I was probably in the 8th, maybe 9th grade. And I was a baseball player. Had been a baseball player growing up. My dad obviously was a baseball player. And I remember this last year that I played baseball, I led the league in home runs, led the league in stolen bases, and was a third baseman, but actually did a little pitching too, but I just loved the sport. And it came time for the All-Star selections, and I didn't make the All-Star team. And I was so disappointed, almost devastated. And I'm like, well, what do I have to do? I'm the best in the league in home runs and the best in the league in stolen bases. And it took me many, many years to realize that, sports isn't all about you and your performance. Sometimes politics do play a role in sports. And maybe that's one of the things that I'm engaged with now in an administrator in these programs is that, let's get involved on that side. Because what I found later on in life was, one kid from every team made the All-Star team. And who made it that year was the catcher, who's the coach's son.
I just about to say that.
Yeah.
I was about to say that as a coach.
And
that's exactly how my son learned a hard lesson too.
And that influenced my life in a way that the next year I said, I don't want to play baseball, Dad. I want to run track. And I did, and I was watching a hurdler, and I'm like, I think I can do that. And so I tried the hurdles.
Some of that have much more to do with the A to B. Like, you can't take this away from me. You're either faster or not. Like, there's, we're going to select first place. It's going to be based on me finishing first.
On how well you do as yourself.
Yeah.
And that was, it was very rewarding because that year I guess that was probably my 9th grade year. I was undefeated in the hurdles, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I found something that I excel at, and that I do control my destiny in. And I went on in it was Quail Hollow Junior High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. Went on to South Mecklenburg High School, better known for its national basketball prowess.
Okay.
My junior year and senior year. Basketball, they won the state championships. Had 4 NBA players.
And
Walter Massey,
that's
Lou
no trick
Jones,
in
Mark
North
Greiner.
Carolina.
These guys are great.
I mean, geez. That's
so
yeah.
Ran track there. Was very fortunate. I graduated from South Mecklenburg in 19.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who was there an adult who? How do you get to hurdles? Is there some adult who identified you? Did somebody recruit you off the baseball team? Was there
actually it was another kid that I was watching. It was a friend of mine. We'd been friends in high school. In junior high school, that was a hurdler, tall, lanky kid, and that's what he did. And I watched him, and I said, I think I can do that. And then I did, and I beat him. And I like, oh, okay, well, he was one of the best ones, so maybe I'll keep going. And went on. And
you must have had a decent track coach that took you.
Well, we did. We had a
pretty good, moved right along.
Pretty good track program. Was also the football coach. I played football and ran track, but. When I graduated in actually 1974 from high school, I'd only ever lost 3 hurdle races ever.
Wow.
And, I'm like, well, I must be pretty good at this stuff, this hurdles. Unfortunately, the two that I lost were the state championships both year. I lost my junior year and senior year. To a guy that never beat me again in college, by the way.
And did you get a scholarship to NC State?
I did, yeah.
And track scholarship?
Well, at that point, we signed track football and/or track to NC State.
So and/or, that's interesting.
The caveat was if you play a major sport, you can't play a major sport on a minor sport scholarship.
Okay.
So I couldn't play football on a track scholarship because at that time, University of Alabama and some other places, I probably shouldn't say, point out, but maybe it wasn't Alabama. The theory was, or we've heard that
we don't know him.
Some schools were actually giving diving scholarships to 300-pound linebackers, and so that's not quite fair to everybody. So my freshman year at NC State, I was second in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Oh, look out.
Went to the national championships that year. Finished 8th in what was prior to the Amateur Sports Act, AAU.
So this is 74, 75.
This is 1975, yeah.
Now, the Amateur Sports Act is a really interesting time. You have a president, I think, in Jimmy Carter, who had come in, and I think he also broke up some of the other monopolies around the country. But could you see it in that light in around 76? What was going on with the Amateur Sports Act, or did it just not affect you?
Well, it was maybe a little bit later, but the Amateur Sports Act really if you want to talk about the influence that Jimmy Carter had, some of the biggest influence he had was on sport.
Yeah.
Because as we went into the Amateur Sports Act, it was kind of a result of there were several breakups. I think AT&T was one of them.
Yeah.
You have a monopoly.
That's right.
And I believe the AAUs, as best I can remember, it was their track and field chairman that sued and said, hey, you guys got a monopoly on amateur sport, and he won the suit. And the United States Congress that year passed the what's the Stevens Act? We call it the Amateur Sports Act, but named after the senator from Alaska, I believe. And basically that took the authority and the power from the AAU to represent the Olympic-type athletes, the top of the pyramid, and gave it to those national governing bodies that were formed. And then, of course, probably the most impact that Jimmy Carter had that's the most long-reaching is on, I believe it was March the 11th, 1980. When it's
I bet you would
I do not know what the other nations of the world would do, but the United States cannot and will not participate in the Summer Olympic Games.
Yes, that's a good. And you were so lucky he's still alive that we couldn't impersonate him. I mean, that guy is going on and on.
Hey.
What was your first entry into AAU? Was it around that time? Did you know it as a kid?
I did.
Oh,
I was an AAU athlete. The
Okay.
national championships we just spoke of were the true AAU national championships.
And that's something, okay.
That was prior to the Amateur Sports Act, so that was the only top 3 kids made the U.S. team, went to Russia, and then a couple of alternates that year. So.
Wait, when did you go to Russia? What year?
Well, no, that was in 75 prior to the Olympic year. So
wow.
I didn't make it.
Okay.
I was I was rated in the top 8 at that time, and I think I finished 8th or 9th in the national championship.
Okay.
So it didn't
Wow.
make the AAU USA team going to Russia that year.
That's what it was. I see that AAU USA patch sometimes on some of those. So that 1980 USA boycott.
Yeah.
Prior to that run up into it, you had some injuries, I think, going into the trials.
Well, I was pretty fit in '80.
Okay.
I was pretty good shape. I'd stayed on. I'd finished my collegiate eligibility at NC State, but stayed on just for the sole goal of trying to make the 80 Olympic team. And I had done a little bit of crazy stuff. I told you I'd signed football and or track, and at one point I'd signed a little deal to play a little professional football. I found out after 2 or 3 days that this isn't for me. These people are much bigger, much faster, and much meaner, and much more serious than I am. Unfortunately, some of the legislation at that time was I a professional or was I an amateur?
Okay.
And depending on what had actually happened with those trials. As the boycott came around, I had met the qualifying standard to go to the trials. And actually, had I been one of the top 3 actually go on to the Olympic Games that year, I would still had to have made it, still had to be in the top 3. So it would have had to been a hell of a performance. I'd have run faster than I ever had, but I was in pretty good shape. So
I noticed some pretty big names you ran against, like Edward Moses, Ronaldo Nehemiah. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I was second in the ACC as a freshman. In the high hurdles, and I thought, okay, well, I've got a lot of time to go. The next year, University of Maryland signed Ronaldo Nehemiah, who was a world record holder.
Wow.
And so now I'm looking at second in the high hurdles.
That's right.
We trained with Charlie Foster from NC Central because
sure.
he came over and trained at NC State. He was a silver medalist in the Olympic Games. And so then my first forte, I said, well, let's move to the 400 hurdles. My very first race, the 400 hurdles, I ran 50.33, which qualified me for the Olympic trials, and finished third behind Edwin Moses and Mike Shine.
Jeez,
and Mike Shine was a silver medalist, and Edwin was a gold medalist. So
Edwin never got beat.
He was amazing.
Tell me a little bit about that. When you heard that news on March 11th about the boycott, how did that affect you?
We kind of knew. There was a group of us that had gone to Lake Placid for the Winter Olympic Games.
Oh, so you were there for the miracle.
Yeah, it was awesome. Absolutely amazing. Lake Placid was a great place.
Did the place just buzz when that happened?
Oh, it's just unbelievable. The sad story about that is I had to buy the tickets. So we had tickets to the Russia game. But when you bought the tickets, you didn't know who was going to be playing in that match.
Oh, okay.
And so I'd gone up with my college girlfriend at the time and would spend all of our money. We had three days before that, and I'm like, USA will never make it. We'll never be in that thing. So I sold the ticket and went home. So
I've talked to people who left before Kirk Gibson came up.
I sold the ticket and went home before Eruzione scores.
No.
Do you believe in miracles?
No.
We missed it.
Okay. But you got part. You were part of this whole Olympic experience while you're there at Lake Placid.
Yeah, I was.
And was there a rumor that?
Yeah. It wasn't just a rumor at that point. It was pretty well decided that because the Russians had invaded Afghanistan, that for us to participate, and there were a few folks that were upset by that.
Yeah.
I still had the tough row going ahead to be one of the top 3, which would have been finishing a little higher than I'd finished in the trials before, but. That was my shot, I thought. Coming out of it, I thought, well, I'll hang on for 4 more years, maybe Los Angeles in '84.
It's a long time.
And give it a shot. And that's where I had some injuries right before. I was training with John Christ and Lee Pillay and Mauricio Berdalis, some of the best decathletes in the world. John made the team. Lee Pillay made the team.
Wow.
And I'd beaten both of them in the Florida relays just a few months before. But it was a great experience. And, Denny, I told you I tell these stories oftentimes about, you go through that whole phase in your life, and the one most important thing is that Olympic dream, that Olympic medal,
sure.
or be a part of that. And so occasionally I'll get a chance to go talk to schools or high schools or youth groups, and I tell a story. A few years ago, a friend of mine called that was working in Vancouver for the Winter Olympic Games. He said, "Hey, Rusty, we want you to come up here and help us." And I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And he said, "Well, your job's going to be to stand at the finish line of whatever event you are assigned that day. And even the assigning sequence was pretty cool. A member of the Canadian Forces would come in. A member of this international delegation would come in. We'd each draw from a bucket, and we would pick a sport and a medal. So it may be bobsled gold medal. And they'd pair us with the Canadian Forces.
Oh, that's
We'd
cool.
go to the finish line.
Oh, that's real
And we
cool.
would stand there and wait for the gold medalist in the bobsled to finish.
Kidding.
And then for the whole rest of the day, we would
That is so
escort
cool.
them through the protocol, through doping, through country, through back to the athletes' village. So you are living that Olympic experience with the medaling athletes. In the evening, our job was to take them into the award ceremony, would take them up there, would release them to the ceremonies people. They'd take them up on stage, give them their medal, and then they'd come back off the stage, and they were re-released to us until we released them back later that night. So we're driving around with these Olympic medalists and the stories, and it was just what an amazing, amazing experience to be right in a part of that. And at the very end, we were called into the sports performance our sports production office. I'm like, oh, man, they're going to yell at us because a lot of the crazy things we did we probably shouldn't have done. You know, we're hanging out on the rings and these Olympic athletes and doing some stuff that I'm not going to tell you on your podcast.
Right. I can imagine. I know you're
great time. But they brought us into the room, and the head of the sports production said, you know, the Olympic motto says the most important Olympic sport is not to have conquered all, but to have taken part. And most people don't realize, but there's not just three, the gold, the silver, the bronze medal, but there's also the participation medal.
Sure.
Given to all the participants, because the most important thing is to have taken part.
Sure.
And so we would like to present you with your Olympic participation medal for taking part in these Olympic Games. So in 2010 in Vancouver, a Winter Olympic sport, as an administrator,
That's
I get an
30 years
Olympic
later.
medal. And it goes, and the story I like to tell to these kids is, you know, don't ever give up, and you never know where the opportunity to fulfill your dream will come. So now
that is beautiful.
I've got an Olympic medal from Vancouver Olympic Games as an administrator on the bobsled.
Look out. That's all right.
But
that's
it's
all right.
Cool. Pretty cool.
Now, you're current first vice president of the AAU. What originally led you into AAU and management, or running for office and wanting to make a difference in the administrative side?
Well, I was very blessed coming out of college. I coached for a couple of years, but I was also working with Adidas USA. I was a national director of marketing and promotions with Adidas USA. And in that role, I worked on a lot of major sporting events from a business perspective, a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from an event operation perspective. And so we worked with the Olympic festivals and the Pan American Games, Olympic Games. We worked with some of the big road races, and so we were like, you know, this is a pretty interesting platform here, and sports is a big business, and it's not just professional sports. There's a business in amateur sports, and I left Adidas to become a partner in a very small shoe company called Capa. Capa at that point, I was one of the owners.
It was primarily a track shoe?
Well, it started off as an aerobic shoe.
Oh, okay.
And they were the number one selling fitness shoe in the world for a while.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
And we had to stay for 3 years as part of the program. It was a 3-year vesting period. Then we sold to Umbro, the soccer company. And as we sold to Umbro, I found myself basically unemployed. And I'm like, I've got a little bit of money, but not enough to live on the rest of my life. And I was approached by these guys who had just started a sports commission in Florida.
And you had moved to Cocoa Beach by this time?
Well, I hadn't. I had gone back and I'd worked with the AAU with the Junior Olympic Games. I worked with Paul.
Oh, I see.
The Junior Olympic Games in San Antonio. I worked at Junior Olympic Games in St. Petersburg.
So that was your
the Junior
entry
Olympic
into
Games
the
in
admin
Tallahassee. I told a story earlier today. I don't know if you got a chance to hear about we did a torch run as part of the Junior Olympic Games program, which was a fascinating program that we did. Denny, and
which Junior Olympic Games?
It was in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Probably 88?
No, 90, let's see, 91, 91, somewhere in 1990.
See, I got involved with the AAU about 94, so it's before me, but okay.
And that was President Bush. And we did a torch lighting ceremony with Vice President Quayle on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C.
Wow, how exciting is that?
And then we did a torch run, and we got a really nice letter from President Bush that's kind of been the cornerstone of most of my speaking engagements, because he said in that letter to me, he goes, thank you for representing my 1,000 Points of Light program, because every little shining point, and this is certainly one of those, because not every kid's going to be in the NFL or play in the NBA or play MLB, but every one of those kids are going to grow up. They're going to be doctors and lawyers and preachers and teachers and educators, and they're going to learn those life lessons from sport that you carry on to the adult world.
It's unbelievable.
And so for many, many, many years, that's been kind of the cornerstone of all the speaking engagements that I give, is that sports teaches life lessons, not just lessons that you win or go home.
That's right.
You learn from it, and I firmly believe that. For almost 20 years now, that's been the cornerstone of every speech I've ever given. Until about 6 months ago, we were in the Republic of Kosovo.
So, what led you to that? No, did you go to Afghanistan first?
I did.
And then to Kosovo.
Afghanistan was prior to the London Olympics, 2012. There was the U.S. State Department, through the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, wanted to do a diplomatic sports program to try to do just what that international sports missions are, and that's to bring kids together through a sport platform. You saw it in Pyeongchang when the North Koreans and the South Koreans marched together as a unified team. And
was there any recollection when you were going to go to Afghanistan that was the impetus for the 1980 boycott was Russia's invasion of Afghanistan?
Ironic.
Did that cross your mind at all?
Kind of ironic, isn't it? And
in some
that
way
we had gone into Afghanistan.
In some way, it's a circle.
Certainly. And
tell me a little about that experience in Afghanistan.
Well, it was probably one of the most moving experiences that I've ever had, in that here are these children that don't live a normal life. I can remember that at the end of this 10-day program, we went to watch an activity, and it was kids, and they were playing karate and dancing and singing, and it was just a performance put on for us, our delegation. And I'm videoing it with my phone, like, oh, this is cool. And as I was leaving, one of the administrators stopped me and he said, I would hope that you would keep this to yourself and not show that video or certainly post it on any social platforms, because this is a country still very much struggling. And just the fact that you could put kids on faces associating with you could potentially put those children or their families at risk.
Goodness,
so we'd appreciate
that hits heavy.
And we had a young girl that came up to us and said, we are from Kandahar. And Kandahar is a very difficult place to be right now, with the influence of the Taliban. The general that took us around was just an amazing guy, and he took us down on the soccer field, and we're standing on the soccer field in the middle of the snow, and he said, this is hallowed ground. This is where the Taliban brought the women for their public beheadings as an indication. So to be a part of that, it put a little bit of weight on your shoulder, like, I got to make an effort to try to make a difference here.
And you've also talked about what sports does for people, and that it normalizes maybe things a little bit, and their children might have an opportunity to take it a little bit further.
Yeah.
I like when you talk about that. Like it hits. You could see it. In making that outreach.
When we were talking about a little earlier today about our visit to Kosovo. The Republic of Kosovo. Here again, another war-torn country. I mean, when technically, I guess they're not even the war has not even ended, but they have ceased hostilities, and hopefully the countries are all getting along now. But there was a very interesting moment when we're speaking with the ambassador and the prime minister. And I'm trying to sound as smart as I can about sports, and I'm going to my old go-to about those lessons that you learn.
Absolutely.
You learn teamwork and goal setting in sports. And the prime minister stopped me, and he said, yes, but that's just the tip. You learn so much more, because children can change the world through sport. Because children, if you boil it down to this lowest common denominator, children are children. They want to play. They want to interact. They want to have fun. They want to engage. So if you can change the children, the children become parents, and they change their children. You change the world generationally through sports. He said, and read Nelson Mandela's quote. And I think I read it in there a little bit earlier, but that sports has the power to change the world. And it's amazing. We saw it in Pyeongchang.
Yeah, that North and South Korea coming together. There's nothing like that. So you really, and then tell me a little bit about China. I know you're involved there with spreading it. And this is all, do you see this as all part of that global initiative that the AAU has taken on?
Well, sports is global. I mean, and you look at it today, and this, it was funny. I'm here in Anaheim.
Sure.
My ticket from Cocoa Beach, Florida, out of Melbourne International Airport to here costs more than my ticket to China. So it's more expensive to come to Anaheim than it is to go to Beijing. So we are in a global world. Yeah. We're a global society. And President Xi, and I'll tell you as accurately as I can tell the story, I was talking about the Chinese initiative and kind of what we wanted to do. And one of our board members, Teresa Parmenter, came up to me and said, well, you need to come to Iowa. And I'm like, why do I want to go to Iowa? We're talking about China. And she, you need to come to Iowa. So I go to Iowa, and I sit down with this lady from Iowa Sister States. I'd never heard of Iowa Sister States. Didn't even really know what they were. And she goes, are you familiar with this program? I said, well, yeah, we got sister cities. And she goes, no, totally different. So the State Department, we're funded out of the governor's office, and it's a developmental program from governor to governor, basically state to state. We're active in Beijing. Matter of fact, back in close on the dates, 1985, there was a young Chinese guy came over here, and he was paired with this Italian guy, and they got together, and that was part of our sister states program. Now, the Italian guy's got a lot of money. He loved it here. He stayed here. Family produces equipment for Coca-Cola. But his best friend, the Chinese guy, went back to China. Well, today he's the president. And I said, the president of what? She goes, well, president of China is Xi Jinping.
Oh, come on.
I said,
Nice.
wait. So the president of China was involved in the Iowa Sister States program in the 80s. And she goes, oh, yeah, he's been over here 2 or 3 times to see Luca. And I'm like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. So
wow.
She goes, and beautiful, sweet Teresa Parmenter says, well, we're going to go have lunch with Luca after we're finished here. It's sure, the world, we're back over having lunch with Luca. And Luca's talking about some of the initiatives, the President's Council that we're doing. And he goes, President Xi has mandated that there be so much recreation space constructed because they want to fit kids' program in China.
Sure.
And he put us in touch with the folks from Beijing Sports Entertainment who will be here this afternoon. Maybe get a word with them if you'd like. The Vice President of Development for Beijing Sports are building the facilities for the 2022 Olympics and about 2,000 other facilities per this presidential mandate, of which we're going to hopefully be a partner in putting programming in. So as we spoke to Luca about this program, he goes, well, you need to go to Kosovo. He said, didn't you go to Afghanistan? I said, yeah. He said, well, you need to go to Kosovo as part of our initiative. And I'll be real honest, I didn't know where Kosovo was at the time. I knew it was over there somewhere, former Soviet Union, but didn't understand the struggles that those people had gone through.
The Balkans have been in struggle for a long time.
So about a month later, I find myself with the general consul and the ambassador, and we're in Kosovo and now committed to doing some programs helping those kids. I mean, we're literally talking about a country that does not have one single hurdle.
Did you see any of this when you were younger? North Carolina State guy, did you see staying in sports this long and giving back like this, or was it something that evolved as you got older?
Well, as we kind of progressed and we saw the business of this, we were approached by a county commissioner from Brevard County, Cocoa Beach area.
So that's what got you down to Cocoa.
He said, look, we're going to start a sports commission, and we think that there's value in amateur sports, and you seem to kind of know that business. So for 26 years, we ran my business, and we ran a for-profit division, and then a nonprofit.
Sports Coast.
Space Coast Sports, right?
That's right, yeah.
And that was a nonprofit. Any money we made off running the events, we put right back into running more events and giving kids opportunities. And geez, you can't walk in Cocoa Beach now. Half the kids that are around there, work with us during as much like you guys do. Work with us during the summer.
Oh, we got a chance to come in and work with you and run a Cocoa Beach tournament. I still got a Ron John surf. I mean, sure. From there, you were also inducted to the Space Coast Sports Hall of Fame.
That's right.
So,
You did some digging to find that, didn't you?
We did. We did. So I got a crack research team.
There you go.
So that was 2014. What a little bit about that award?
That was great. My mom came in, and she was more excited because she was sitting right beside Doug Flutie. So my mom got to hang out with Doug Flutie, got her pictures taken, got to go back and show all her friends. Oh, yeah, I'm here with Doug. Oh, yeah, my son was there, too.
A little shout out to my mom. It would be her 95th birthday today. So I lost her a few years ago. But when I looked at that today, and then I looked at the agenda for today, I said, "Mom would be proud."
Yeah,
I bet your mom was proud to be there.
She was. It was
right.
Good. Yeah, we're excited.
A little rusty.
Yeah, and my sister came up. I had my whole family there. It's a pretty good program because basically what we're doing is we're not just recognizing the guys that put this together, media guys, Space Coast Daily, are the folks that pulled all this thing together. And they've got different sport categories, and they've looked at some really, really high, visible, recognizable people, but they also look at some people that maybe got overlooked.
Sure.
And they do a great job in the community with it, so shout out to those guys. I appreciate their recognizing us. And I think a year later they went back and looked at some of the stuff we had done with our outreach efforts into some of the other countries, and we got a humanitarian award the next year as well.
It only took you 40 years to become an overnight success, Rusty.
Yeah, I like that.
So I know so you're still living in Florida.
I am, yeah.
Can you give me any crazy alligator stories?
Well, you don't want to get bit by one, I tell you.
We ran in Orlando beach volleyball.
Yeah.
We ran the tournament on the Grand Floridian.
Yeah.
Where that alligator did take that kid, and that was the beach we ran it on.
Oh, no kidding.
That was the actual beach, but it had flipped by the time that happened. But there was a time when those balls would go into that little lagoon, and we didn't know.
For the most part, the Gators are more afraid of you than you are of them.
I would imagine. Sure.
We got a little Cocoa Beach golf course down there. It's 27 hole. They just go down, knock the ball around. It's for duffers that aren't very good like me. And there's a few Gators that are on the course. And occasionally your ball will roll over, and they'll be out there sunning themselves. And you go over and make a little noise, and they'll typically run away. We do live on the water in Cocoa Beach. And I think I've been there for 20-some years, and I've seen gators in that water twice. So
okay.
I'm more concerned with the brown algae that we've got going in the water.
Who isn't? Okay, I hope you're excited because we got some questions for you.
Okay.
You got to answer quick. This is kind of the rapid fire round.
All right, let's
you ready?
do it. Yeah.
What was your phone number as a kid?
867-5309.
Solid. First pet's name?
Inky, the cat.
Favorite sport to play as a youngster?
I just said baseball.
Mm-hmm. Favorite sport to watch now?
Ooh, that's a good one. I really do like college football.
Nice. Favorite sports team ever, any level, whether you were involved or not?
I have to be the Wolfpack track and field team.
Ah, solid. You know? Which year?
Well, actually, we didn't win the ACC while as an athlete, but we did win it twice while as a coach. So
okay, that's pretty good. And you got to go with your '83 basketball team.
Well, when we won NCAA,
that's something else.
Jimmy V was one of the amazing recruiter he was. One of the most amazing people you'd ever meet.
You had a chance to know him a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
I knew. What
Jimmy.
A guy. I mean, he comes through so much on those documentaries.
Another show, another day. I'll tell you a Jimmy V story that's just absolutely amazing.
I love it. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a scary one, because you mentioned the alligators. We live in Florida, and we like to kid people about Jaws. Don't go in there because you're going to get eaten by a shark.
Don't go in the pond. All right. Favorite band?
Oh, that's a good one. Past or present?
Past.
Past? I gotta like the Beatles.
Okay. Yeah, you're not the only one. Favorite board game ever?
I'd probably say Monopoly, because we played that a lot as a kid.
Nice. Monopoly gets some play. Mine's Stratomatic. You ever know that?
No.
That's
for smart people.
It was all based, and you could play baseball, any sport, and it was all based on odds. It was brilliant. All right.
Oh, wait. Does that little football game where it vibrates,
that's
does that count?
Football, but I had that.
That's a board game.
I guess it is. That was always interesting. That depended on your electrical currency. All right. You got to pick one now. Mayo or Miracle Whip?
Oh, mayo.
Taco or burgers?
Taco.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Beer or cocktail?
Beer.
Ice cream or frozen yogurt?
Ice cream.
Bacon or sausage?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Bacon.
Cats or dogs?
My wife's going to kill me, cats.
Spiders, do you kill them or put them outside?
Oh, we kill them.
Yeah. You're from Florida. What are you going to, you know? All right. You did pretty well. Marley, now we'll spin the dial. We got a dial on there.
Yeah.
And she's going to pick a pop culture quiz for you to take.
Are you ready for this, Rusty?
Let's do it.
All right, here goes. Ooh, today is Magnum P.I.
Magnum P.I. airing on CBS from 1980 to 88.
Well, I can tell you these will all be good, very well-educated guesses.
That's
Okay.
all we can ask for.
Fair enough. So you got your Magnum, Rick, and TC. They're the buddies,
All right.
right? They all were buddies in what war before they came over? They were part of a special forces team.
In Vietnam.
Very good. Okay, you're off and running. What branch of the military is Magnum from?
Marines.
He was the Navy.
Well, the Marines are a branch of the Navy.
Yeah, you know, he played two sports at the Naval Academy. Do you know what they were?
Baseball and basketball.
Basketball and football.
Football.
He was the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, he beat Army in his last game. 21 for 30 from throwing the ball. 3 touchdowns. It's pretty solid, that Magnum. Magnum's the guy who ran the place. The dojo. Higgins. He had 2 Doberman pinchers that performed security on the estate. Do you know what their names were?
Mad Max and Thunderdome.
They were following Zeus. I love everybody guessing at that one. By the way, Dr. Gowdy got 100% on that one. Who would I have known?
Because you had the answers laying in front of him the whole time, Denny. Come on.
Hey,
he's the president. You got to make him look good.
I gotta tell you something. Been always first just found you funny, but over time really come to respect you and what you've done and how you're moving young people forward.
Denny, thanks.
It's good stuff.
Appreciate
Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks
All right.
for having me, man.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Sports Story staff includes Marley Rice, Teresa Dolan, Bob McCall, Michael Lennon, Sienna Lennon, Brad Lawson, Christine Jimbo, and Jake Downey. Now it's time to go to Coach's Corner, where one of our valued subscribers reads one of Coach John Wooden's favorite poems.
Hey, this is Jordan Foldis from out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I just stumbled across your podcast and we're loving it so far, so keep the stories coming. The poem I chose is Title Unknown by Philip B. Bliss. There is a choice you have to make in everything you do. So keep in mind that in the end, the choice you make makes you.
If any one of our listeners would like to read one of Coach Wooden's favorite poems for a future show, go to our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com and click on the Coach's Corner link. As always, we leave you with a song from the band Venice.
The sea is on my left, the mountains on my right, and you lie straight ahead of this fine reunion face, I know that we'll pick up right where we left off. Right where we left off. So many moons ago, Pacific Standard Time, we crossed each other's T's and knew each other's lines. But now the time, the miles, our lives can make it tough. But when I see your face, I know that we'll pick up right where we left off. Right where we left off. The sea is on my left, the mountains on my right, and you lie straight ahead of this fine reunion flight. Together once again, we don't do this enough. But when I see your face, I know that we'll pick up right where we left off. Right where we left off. The sea is on my left, the mountains on my right, the sea is on my left, the mountains on my right. The sea is on my left, the mountains on my right.
Kick it out, Book.